With millions pouring into the Power and Light District to visit restaurants, bars, and attend concerts, parking problems and an upswing in vehicle towing cost many patrons hundreds of dollars in fines and fees. Tonight, we examine how the predatory towing was allowed to happen in the first place and whether or not it could happen again. For months, we waited and watched as car after car was hoisted up and towed away from the downtown Power and Light District.
Take a little trip with me.
You towed 11 cars already? Yeah. Holy cow.
Concert goers, restaurant patrons, and even Power and Light employees themselves fell prey to the increased towing in the area.
Where's my car?
When a towing company removes a car, there are certain procedures that must be followed. This Form 4669 must be filled out within 2 hours of the tow and either dropped off or faxed to the police department. What happens if they don't do that?
We don't know about it. And then that can create other problems because the person comes back, they think their car was stolen.
Mike Shoemaker is Kansas City, Missouri's public safety liaison. He says not following the rules can mean hefty fines for the tow company.
And if the tow company doesn't comply with state statute and submit the appropriate paperwork, we really rely upon that vehicle owner who feels that they've been victimized.
But it's difficult to track what the tow companies are actually doing. So we asked for copies of all the towing forms filed with the city between May and November of last year. After waiting for more than 4 months, those public documents were finally handed over. And then we did something that nobody else had tried. We fed all that data into a computer to get a picture of what exactly was going on. This is the paper trail that proves when and where a car was towed and how much was charged.
The whole system just it smelled funny.
Chris's car was towed in October after he parked at this lot on Truman in Baltimore. He paid $370 to get his car back, but there's no record of his car being towed within the city's documentation.
I'm at a loss for why they wouldn't have done that.
And he's not the only one whose paperwork is missing. Just moments after we saw 5 tow trucks converge on this lot during the Coldplay concert in November, we met Scott and his wife, whose car had been towed that night.
This is the kind of shenanigan stuff that's going to kill this place.
We searched for a record of Scott's car being towed, but again, there was none. And his receipt from the towing company doesn't even have his name on it.
It sounds like they're not doing business the correct way if they're not documenting who they're towing.
And without that record, it's harder to determine whether or not someone was legitimately towed in the first place.
As far as not knowing when they're not reporting, then it's very difficult for us to know. It's like the crime that didn't happen. There's no way to measure it.
I think that was part of the problem, again, which is why the ordinance was placed into effect.
Gary Majors says his office, Regulated Industries, just took over enforcing towing regulations when the city passed its ordinance back in December. And despite acknowledging that some tow companies were using predatory practices, the city says they couldn't find one record of a tow company that was penalized and fined for it.
I've been here a year and a half, and I can tell you that has not happened since I've been here.
In fact, until the new towing ordinance went into effect this past December, no government agency was regulating or tracking what was going on at all. Which meant not only could tow companies charge as much as they wanted and require cash only, but they could easily keep from reporting the circumstances surrounding their practices.
And if the problems continue and this ordinance package does not resolve those problems, then the city will be once again forced to respond legislatively.
Gary Majors says while some tow operators may have profited unduly off others before, now that Regulated Industries is involved, predatory towing will no longer be tolerated. So the party's over.
The party's over.
We contacted several towing companies to comment for our story. None of them were willing to do so. So what should you do if you feel you were improperly towed either before or after the new towing ordinance went into effect? Well, Gary Majors says to dial 311 and get in touch with Regulated Industries with your complaint. Also, if you have any paperwork detailing your tow, make sure to have that as well. Usher Qureshi, KCTV 5 News.